Welcome to Stoic Sice Wisdom. In today's video, we delve into a narrative that explores the complexities of desire, identity, and the silent battles we fight within ourselves. Part 1. The Unexpected Moment. His lips met mine, warm, unfamiliar, yet I didn't pull away. The kiss wasn't tender, it was sudden, sharp, almost confused. My back pressed against the fridge, breath caught between shock and recognition. It lasted mere seconds, long enough for the taste to linger, short enough to deny if needed. I opened my eyes. His were already on mine. We didn't speak. He stepped back. I turned away. The coffee machine sputtered in the background, reminding me this was still my kitchen, my house, and I was still someone's wife. Part 2. The Arrival. 12 hours earlier, none of this had happened. I was chopping parsley, preparing for dinner. It had been 3 years since he last stepped inside our home. 3 years since he was a lanky teenager, helping carry boxes upstairs. Now he was broader in the shoulders, quieter in voice, eyes darker, smarter, more precise. He had learned to notice things and chose carefully when to let you know. The message came around noon, a photo of the highway through a windshield with a caption, "Almost home, miss your coffee." It shouldn't have meant anything, but it did. Not because of the words, but because of how they landed inside me, like fingertips brushing a part of me I hadn't let anyone near for years. Part 3. The Unspoken Tension. That day, I didn't wear perfume. I told myself it was because I'd be in the kitchen most of the afternoon, but the truth was I didn't want to smell like anything familiar. Instead, I slipped into a dress I hadn't worn in years, soft beige cotton that fit too well if you stood still long enough. Underneath, I wore black lace, no padding. I chose it like one might choose a secret, not for anyone to see, just to remember how it felt. He arrived around 5. No fanfare, just a knock, a casual push of the door, and suddenly there he was. Taller than I remembered, with a little scruff on his face, the same smile but heavier now, a man's weight behind it. He hugged me. Not too long, not too tight, but tight enough. Part 4. The Dinner. The evening was uneventful if you ask anyone else. Wine, small talk, my husband telling stories he'd told before, but I was watching how his son watched me. Not constantly, just precisely. When I leaned down to pull the roast from the oven, I felt his eyes on the back of my knees. When I set the plates, his hand brushed mine, twice, never by accident. Later, after dinner, my husband went to the garage for a screwdriver he forgot. I stood by the counter, finishing my glass. He came up behind me, silent. "Still the best cook I know," he said. I turned. He was close, closer than necessary. "Thanks," I said, but my voice sounded wrong, too dry, too light. And then it happened. The kiss. Part 5. The Aftermath. When he left the room, I didn't move for nearly a minute. My fingers still held the stem of the wine glass, but I didn't trust myself to lift it. My knees weren't steady. I stayed up late that night, not out of guilt, not even confusion. It wasn't about love. It wasn't about betrayal. It was about feeling like someone had finally seen me, not as a wife, not as a caretaker, but as a woman. And I knew, even if it never happened again, I had already crossed a line, not with him, with myself. Part 6. The Morning. After I thought the kiss would change everything, but when I walked into the kitchen the next morning, the world still spun as if nothing had happened. The clock above the sink still ticked in lazy rhythm. The window still opened to the same view of our tired garden, and the man reading the newspaper at the table was still my husband. He looked up briefly and smiled, not the kind that asks questions, the kind that assumes everything is in place. I made coffee the way I always did, beans ground fresh, water poured in a slow circle, steam rising like a secret. My hands moved on autopilot, but something in my chest felt unsettled, like the air had grown heavier overnight. Part 7. The Silent Dance. The sound of bare feet descending the stairs made my spine straighten. He walked into the kitchen like he hadn't kissed me against the refrigerator 12 hours ago. No lingering glances, no hesitation. He took a seat across from his father and reached for a croissant like any other young man returning home after a long absence. But I noticed the subtle things, the way he brushed a crumb from his shirt and didn't look up after, the fact that he sat close enough to me to feel the heat from my side of the table but didn't lean in, the deliberate neutrality of his posture, like someone balancing on a wire. I carried on because what else could I do? Part 8. The Unspoken Acknowledgement. Later, when my husband left for a supply run, something about paint, maybe nails. I began cleaning the living room. I didn't need to. Everything was already in order. But I dusted the mantel, straightened photo frames, wiped down glass surfaces that hadn't seen a smudge in weeks. He found me there, crouched by the bookshelf, organizing things that didn't need organizing. "You always this restless when the house is full?" he asked from behind. I froze for a beat, then sat back on my heels. "I guess I like things in place." "And are they?" I looked over my shoulder. He stood with a cup of water in his hand, his eyes sharp but tired. "I'm not sure anymore," I said. That was the closest we came to acknowledging it. Part 9. The Days That Followed. The rest of the afternoon passed like any other. He unpacked, moved into the guest room, took a long shower. I heard the water running behind the thin wall of the hallway, and hated how aware I was of it. I folded laundry I hadn't worn in days, just to keep my hands busy. Later that evening, the three of us ate dinner together. Chicken, rice, something green on the side. My husband talked about the price of timber and gas. His son listened politely, asked a few practical questions. I watched both of them, two versions of masculinity, one dulled by routine, the other sharpened by restraint. After the meal, I went into the kitchen to wash the dishes. He joined me without being asked. He dried them silently, passing each plate back to me like a ritual. At one point, his fingers brushed mine again. That same electric hush bloomed in my chest, but neither of us acknowledged it. "Are you planning to stay long?" I asked, keeping my eyes on the sink. He hesitated. "Long enough." I didn't press. When the dishes were done, he disappeared upstairs, and I stood alone with the silence. My reflection in the window was soft, ghost-like, a woman outlined by habit, made opaque by desire. Part 10. The Internal Struggle. The next morning I woke up before the alarm, slipped out of bed quietly, showered in silence. I chose a navy blouse with pearl buttons, slightly sheer, though not enough to be indecent, just enough to feel noticed. I pinned my hair up, applied a soft red tint to my lips, and told myself it was just another day. A normal day, a day like any other. But I knew it wasn't. Because when you cross a line, no matter how quietly, no matter how unintentionally, you are never really on the same side again. Part 11. The Mirror Doesn't Lie. I stood in front of the mirror longer than necessary that morning. The woman looking back at me wasn't unfamiliar, but she wasn't innocent either. She didn't blush. She didn't avert her gaze. She stared at herself, questioning not what had happened, but why she let it happen, and more terrifying, why she didn't regret it. Part 12. Conversations that never happen. He and I barely spoke the next few days. Not about it. Not about anything that truly mattered. We kept to the safe zones, the weather, groceries, whether the water heater was acting up. But our silences spoke louder than anything else. They were heavy, charged, restrained. Every time we crossed paths, at the sink, in the hallway, by the laundry basket, It was as though the air tightened around us, as if the house itself had started listening. My husband, he noticed none of it, or maybe he did, and chose to stay blind. Some men do, not because they trust you, but because they fear what they'll find if they don't. Part 13. The Flashpoint. It happened again. This time it wasn't impulsive. It was deliberate. I was folding towels in the linen closet, door half open. He stood behind me, watching. Neither of us moved for a long moment. Then he closed the door, softly, intentionally. The click of that door echoed in my chest, louder than thunder. His hands slid around my waist from behind, not hesitating this time. No words, just breathe, just pressure. The kiss wasn't on my lips, it was on my neck. My hands didn't push him away. They braced against the shelf, for balance, for silence, for surrender. Part 14. Afterwards, he left first, back to school, or work, or a life untouched by what had happened here. He didn't say goodbye like someone leaving a home. He said goodbye like someone leaving a battlefield, quiet, measured, too aware. My husband waved from the porch. I stayed inside, pretending I had laundry to finish, pretending I hadn't already begun rewriting my story. Part 15. Consequences. This is where you might expect a confession, a breakdown, tears, a fight, a divorce. But life isn't always scripted that way. Sometimes the punishment is silence. Sometimes it's continuing to live a lie with every breath you take. It's sleeping beside a man whose touch no longer stirs anything inside you. It's seeing yourself become the very thing you once judged. And the cruelest part, it's realizing you don't even hate yourself for it. Not fully, because for the first time in years, you felt alive. Part 16. The Mirror. Again. Weeks passed, then months. But the mirror never forgot. Every time I looked at it, I saw a version of me that no longer fit in the life I'd built. The woman who wore dresses for herself, who kissed a man she shouldn't have, who said yes with her body when her mind screamed no, not out of love, not out of revenge, but out of hunger, a hunger for herself, a hunger to be seen, desired, acknowledged. Part 17. The Stoic Reckoning. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But what if the betrayal wasn't an outside event? What if it came from within? What do you do when the enemy is not a person, but your own reflection? The part of you that chose to feel rather than obey, to risk everything just to remember you're still alive. Stoicism teaches us to govern emotion with reason, but it also reminds us we are not gods. We are human, flawed, capable of both restraint and collapse. Part 18. Closure, or something like it. I never told my husband, not out of mercy, but because some truths don't cleanse, they corrode, and I wasn't ready to destroy the illusion we'd both agreed to maintain. We live quietly now. He still brings me tea in the mornings. I still kiss his cheek before bed. But there's a part of me he'll never touch again. A door that closed, a line that was crossed, a kiss that will echo far longer than it should. This wasn't a love story. It wasn't even a tragedy. It was a moment, a dangerous, human, undeniable moment. And in that moment, I met a version of myself I never knew existed, and I'm still deciding whether I regret it. This has been Stoic Psyche Wisdom, where we face the truths we fear to say out loud. If this resonated with you, share it, reflect on it, question it, because sometimes the deepest wisdom comes not from virtue, but from the parts of us we wish we could forget.